Hey, everybody, it's Eri from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan. You're looking at the top 300 by market cap. It's a continuation of this sideways action, very tight ranges. Bitcoin is currently trading at 61,500 and some. Pretty calm market overall. I know a lot of people on this channel are holding XRP, and it's getting closer to my 46-cent entry. That's my target. I sold a lot or a fair amount at 61 cents. So as a swing trader, I'm looking for a new entry. XRP has been one of those assets that is consistent in a range that is more predictable than many. Now, I'm not recommending that anybody follow my style of trading. Find your own style. I'm just telling you what I do. And if you want to know what I don't trade, but what I hodl and accumulate right now, that's Flare. Let me play a clip for you, about 1 minute, and I think it'll explain one of the reasons why.
We've been evolving our thinking as this market's moving so quickly, and we've developed a greater appreciation for the data. So it's the data that feeds these generative AI models. And so we expect investors will continue to start to ascribe more value to companies that own data, that sell data, and that store data. Examples are market data and intelligence providers and companies, other companies involved in financial information and analytics. The technology's being deployed so rapidly that we're watching it evolve, and we're looking to capitalize on any change. And active investing is a really great tool to capitalize on this change because the technology indexes are very concentrated.
I have to say, I can't believe that I heard someone on YouTube in the last couple of days that was promoting a channel talking about how the XRP ledger does not require electricity to operate. I sometimes just can't take this space anymore. If I take you back to a series of tweets from David Schwartz, this is April 8th, 2023. The XRPL requires electricity to operate. He's not sure how this could be controversial, that we don't even have non-electric computers with the kind of capabilities needed to run a blockchain. He put together a very strong list of things that a lot of influencers get wrong, like XRP has nothing to do with ISO 200.22. All the money in the world won't run on the XRP ledger. The US government is not going to buy back your XRP. XRP can't be pegged to gold, silver, or anything else. XRP can't magically become a stablecoin either. That one keeps still popping up. Stablecoins issued on the XRP ledger are not XRP. They don't have anything to do with each other. RippleNet is totally different than the XRP ledger. Jeff and Chip on their channel On the Chain, they're going to break this down tomorrow. I think it's something you want to watch if you have any questions about this list. Big Picture Guy asked for 10 reasons why we should hold on to our XRP. And I gave a list of 10. Now, this is not intended to advise anyone to hold XRP, but rather I'm listing the utility. XRP is an efficient gas token. XRP is valuable for auto bridging. XRP can be used in DeFi, liquidity pools, and the Flare assets, which I'm very much looking forward to. XRP can be a store of value. XRP helps prevent spam on the ledger. XRP is a fast payment settlement token. It helps also reduce or eliminate those nostro vostro accounts. That's that tied up capital that's used in the correspondent banking business model. 8, it has a low carbon footprint. 9, it can be a part of a micropayment solution. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. And 10, it has low transaction fees. Someone also replied that the IMF called XRP and XLM stablecoins. Well, it wasn't the IMF. Actually, it was something that was mentioned in a World Bank document. And if you read the finer print to that document, the findings or interpretations or the conclusions that were expressed in that volume do not necessarily reflect the views of the executive directors of the World Bank or the governments they represent. The World Bank does not guarantee the accuracy of that data included in that work, and the boundaries, colors, denominations, and other information shown on any of the maps in that work are not to be implied any judgment on the part of the World Bank concerning the legal status of any territory or endorsement of acceptance of such boundaries. Basically, some people that they hired wrote the report, and obviously they don't understand blockchain very well, especially a decentralized asset like XRP. People ask me often, have I gone sour on the digital asset XRP? Well, I have to tell you, I am disappointed that we don't have smart contracts on the main branch. And I've been very public about that. And I found a clip that has Jed McCaleb talking about smart contracts. He's one of the original architects of the XRP ledger. And yeah, you're going to hear how he thinks that it was a wrong decision not to bring smart contracts earlier to the Stellar chain. Have a listen.
How is that for you, given that in the early days of Stellar, we had made a decision that we didn't need to have a smart contract platform? So we're coming full circle now.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the right decision. I wish we had done it years ago, obviously. It was kind of one of these things where, we were actually considering doing some smart contract thing back in early Ripple days, but we kind of put it off. And then once Ethereum was starting, and then when we started Stellar, we were like, okay, let's just leave that aside. Maybe it makes more sense just to be more opinionated about what people need and give them all the kind of the building blocks that we think that they'll need. And I still think that it's in some way that's true, but it just doesn't work with people's like mentality, right? So like people want to be able to experiment and do different things. And so yeah, I guess if I had to do it over again, we would have done it earlier, or at least had it on the side where people could experiment somehow, and maybe that stuff got pulled into the main branch like periodically or something like that. But yeah, so it's cool to watch. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll like open up a lot of like possibilities and like all these kind of use cases and stuff that we didn't that are kind of hard or kludgy to do now. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely good that it's happening. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what people start building with it.
I also think that grants could and should be distributed through a fully decentralized governance structure where the community owns and controls the process. Each member would have one vote regardless of the amount of XRP they own. Just how should one member be determined? And I suggested, well, take a look at the KYC token that was developed by Syndric. And within the KYC process, she asked, would a blockchain community be willing to go through an inherently centralized KYC process for this? She felt it was rather against the general ethos of crypto in some ways. And Santiago chimed in and he said that he used to feel that same way until he understood that we all, in a normal world, are happy to accept that the only authority for legal personhood is the government. It's a perfectly reasonable database to draw valuable information for use of decentralized systems. No one is saying that it becomes an enforcing intermediary, which is the generally accepted concern, just a reliable oracle to build on. And we accept this for flights, passports, property ownership, registries, etc. So let's acknowledge and leverage that reality. The ethos needs practical refinement, not double standards. Syndric is a solutions company that has spent a quarter of a century building the world's largest trading engines for firms like Merrill Lynch, Fidelity, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley. They have a passion for blockchain and a finance led by a team towards enterprise-grade scalable solutions for brand and entities operating in a Web3 world. Syndric proudly joins the Flare ecosystem with the launch of the XDeFi protocol. And a little update from Tokyo, Moonchaser and I had lunch with the brand new appointed Chief of Strategy for the SBI XDC Network APAC company. Yeah, I think you should give Chihiro-san a follow. I'll put her handle on X in the description of this video. Ryan Salkis had a great post. John Deaton is going to deliver a shock victory against Elizabeth Warren, and he told John that he would get his endorsement. And it's really great that he came out with over 11,000 certified signatures. The bad news is for one of Washington's most entrenched career politicians. Yes, Elizabeth Warren, look who's on the ballot. I did find the interview from Channel 10 in Boston of John, and I'm going to let him take you out on this video. So do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
Let's talk a little bit about why you're running in the first place. You're taking on one of the most well-known senators in the country, and obviously you just moved here from Rhode Island. What brings you to Massachusetts, and why do you want to run for Senate?
Well, first, I have deep connections to Massachusetts. In fact, not only did I graduate law school at New England School of Law in Boston, lived in Roxbury, East Boston, and Malden, I was chosen by the Marine Corps to represent the Commonwealth for the 1994 Judge Advocate Law contract. I couldn't get into Harvard or pay for Harvard, but I beat Harvard students, BC, BU, and Suffolk Law. So I'm very proud of that. And since then, for 22 years, I've represented, as you said, asbestos victims fighting major corporations and insurance companies across the Commonwealth. Dozens and dozens of working families. We're talking plumbers, iron workers, shipyard workers, IBEW electricians, carpenters, auto mechanics. So for 22 years, I've been sitting literally at the kitchen table of working families across the Commonwealth discussing the issues of importance. So I believe my Massachusetts credentials stack up against anyone.
In terms of just why you're running then, what brought you to want to get into politics? What do you think you can change?
You know, that's a great question. And the answer is I felt compelled to do it because I am the American dream, and if you've read my book, you're going to have to agree. I am the living embodiment of the American dream, and I'm sitting back and I'm watching that dream die before my eyes, and I wonder, can a kid in Springfield or Brockton or Roxbury, would they have the same opportunities that I had? And when you look at all the problems we face, illegal immigration out of control, debt crisis, 40% of Americans don't have $500 in case of an emergency, the government's debt, $1 trillion personal credit card debt, opioid addictions, foreign wars, all these things are happening, but the greatest crisis we face in this country is a crisis of leadership because career politicians like Senator Warren are sitting in Washington, D.C., and they're fueling division, pitting American versus American, and I want to do something about it. I want to show the voters a nonpartisan choice who's been a Republican, a Democrat, and an unenrolled voter in his life, and is going to just go do the job. Elizabeth Warren wants to desperately keep the job. I want to go do it.
She's only had 2 terms, though, at this point. You said she's a career, lifelong politician. So what has she missed, I guess, in those first 2 terms that you think she should have been doing over the course of that time?
Well, first of all, I support term limits because I believe if you can't effectuate change in more than a decade in Washington, D.C., then you lack the skill set to do it. Move over and give someone else an opportunity to do it. But here's an example. Senator Warren is the best or worst example, how you phrase it, of what happens in Washington, D.C. 12 years ago, she pounded the table that she was outraged that no banker went to prison from the 2008 financial crisis, and she was going to Washington, D.C. to hold the bankers accountable. Who do you think wrote her last bill? The banking industry led by Jamie Dimon. That's what happens. She didn't have the skill set to beat them, so she joined them. I'm going to go to D.C. and offer a different option.
Someone might argue that if you are going to have a bill written that's going to impact a lot of different industries, you might want to have people from that industry involved in writing the bill. In Massachusetts and Boston, around housing, the BRA, the Boston Development, they have real estate agents and developers involved. Would you say that no one that has expertise should be involved in writing a bill?
Not at all. There's a difference between seeking input and saying write the bill that favors your industry, and that's exactly what's happened recently. And so, of course, you seek the advice and input of experts in the field, but you don't let an industry write the bill and then hand it to you and you stamp your approval. Make no mistake about it, Senator Elizabeth Warren is right now the biggest lobbyist for the banking industry in the country.
So we're here in Massachusetts, where the largest group of voters are the unaffiliated, unenrolled voters that are not necessarily total Republicans or total Democrats. We've had a number of Republican governors over the years with a controlled state house of Democrats. So the question I imagine a number of voters will have for you is, A, what kind of Republican are you? And who are your Republican role models?
Oh, it's a great question. First, let me just say, I don't think there's anyone quite like me that has the life experience that I've had in the Senate, who's overcome poverty and who literally represents regular people and identifies with regular working people and poor people. I'm a small government, fiscally conservative, socially moderate Republican. If you force me to choose a Republican that is sort of like me, it would be Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, of that centrist, fiscally conservative Republican who is more of a common sense approach and a nonpartisan approach. And that's what I bring. The difference between me and Elizabeth Warren, and there are quite a few differences, is that I'm not going to be loyal to a party or a person. I'm going to be loyal to one thing. I have one test. Is it good for Massachusetts and America? If it is, call it a Democrat proposal, I'm all in. Call it a Republican proposal, I'm all in. That's the test, not a political agenda or not a person or party.
Circling back to what you were saying about Senator Elizabeth Warren and some of the bills that she's written, are you saying that she's a tool of the banking industry? I mean, do you think that's a fair criticism based on her record?
I think it is today. I think 12 years ago, let me give Senator Warren the benefit of the doubt. I believe Senator Warren, when she first was running, she meant the things that she was saying, that she was going to go to Washington, she was going to hold those bankers accountable and all of those things. That's why I favor term limits. At some point, you become part of the problem. And when you, a decade later, the people you were going to hold accountable write the bill and you just sign it, that is a problem. And that's something that needs to change. And that's why we need term limits. And term limits are amazing because they don't discriminate. Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. You get your 12 years if you're a senator to effectuate change. And if you don't have the skill set, let someone like me who does have the skill set do it.
Let's go to another topic here as well. We wanted to talk about the southern border, of course, immigration, a huge topic. I believe you went to the border recently and got to see a little bit of what's going on down there. I wonder just what your impressions were of what you saw in the specific spot you went to.
Well, I was familiar with the spot that I went to because prior to going to the border, I was in the Marine Corps, and I served in Yuma, Arizona at Marine Corps Air Station. I was the chief prosecutor for the base, and it actually had coordinated with Border Patrol, Naval Criminal Investigative Service, drug infiltration into America, and I was involved in some of those sort of undercover sting operations. But what amazed me is that 25 years later, it is far worse than it was when I was involved in fighting the drug distribution. And I would encourage anyone that's running for office or someone more important like Senator Warren who's in office to do what I did. Go to the border because you will truly appreciate it. If you experience what I experienced, you would come back and you would have an appreciation for two things. That we have a national security crisis and we have a humanitarian crisis because you can't leave that border without having amazingly deep sympathy for these migrants and what they're going through and this false promise that they've been promised where they pay the cartel everything they own. And there's drug trafficking, there's sex trafficking, there's child trafficking, and partisan politics is getting in the way of that. And I think that if you go see the root of the cause, Whether you're Republican or a Democrat, you'll come back. I think Senator Warren, if she'd have went to the border like I did before that bill, she wouldn't have voted no for the immigration reform bill. She'd have voted yes, because at least it would have been better than the status quo.
Well, let's talk about the status quo, because I think most people would agree that Congress, over the decades, has contributed, if not been the major architect of the problems at the border, the problems with immigration, the problem with our migrants. You know, the Republicans had something in front of them that they helped write that would have at least been a step, I think most would agree, in the right direction to addressing issues at the border. It was killed, some think orchestrated. I think even Donald Trump has said by him. What would you have done if you were in Senate? Would you have been a leader to the Republicans and said, we need to pass this bill? This is a step forward. Joe Biden says he's going to sign it.
Absolutely. I would have supported that bill. It's not a perfect bill, and I'd like to see more done, but it stops the bleeding of the inflow. And so I believe Senator Warren was wrong for voting against that bill. I would have voted for it. But what I would encourage them to do is come back with me. Let's go to the border. Let you experience what I experienced, because if you are a decent human being, you're going to come back and you're going to roll up your sleeves and you're going to get the job done. And that's...
I'm laughing only because lots of, and not at you, I'm laughing that a number of lawmakers go to the border and stand there and give a speech and then come back to their states, and what you haven't done, and I appreciate that, criminalize the migrants who have come here by calling them illegal immigrants when they're actually here legally and they're not immigrants, they're migrants. How would you work within the Republican Party to have them think more like you?
Well, the first thing, shame on anyone that did what you said, whether they're Republican or a Democrat. This is a humanitarian crisis. And let me tell you, I already had sympathy for the migrants. I can identify being poor, wanting a better life. I listened to my mother cry at night on the nights that we couldn't eat. That stays with you no matter how much money you have in the bank account or no matter which title you have. And then when you go and you experience the trauma they're putting through, women being raped, children being raped, owning this servant indebtedness to the cartel for life. You know, they need to come off, get a job so they can make payments to the cartel. And that's what I mean. I don't see how any person, and I blame Republicans, I blame Democrats, how any person could go experience that and not come back and say, we have to secure the border for national security reasons. And this system that we have in place is actually cruel to these people. And that's what I would lead with.
I want to bring it back to your upbringing. You sort of spoke about it there just a moment ago, and we have your book right here, which is Food Stamp Warrior. This is a really interesting look back on your life, of everything that you've gone through, whether it's violence that you experienced in a bad Detroit neighborhood, sexual violence, all these things that you bring up in the book. But I wanted to bring up one specific passage in this. Let's see if I can get it open here. You're talking about basically one of your best friends being killed in a drive-by shooting. And at one point you say that I kept squeezing the trigger after this had happened as bullets shot through the car, blasted the black window into shards. I saw a person in the back slump down, and I'm still not sure if it's because I hit him or if he ducked. This is a really frank sort of admission here of that you don't know what took place in that moment. Do you have any regrets writing that, I guess, now that you're running for office? No,
I would never regret the book, and I could tell you why. And, you know, I talk about being raped as a child in the book. I don't get emotional so much. I get emotional when we talk about my friend who protected me in that neighborhood. I wouldn't be sitting here at this table if I didn't defend myself and my friend. He had just been shot 4 times, and he died in my arms, and they were coming back. I was 17 years old. This is 40 years ago. They were coming back to finish the job. So I did pick up his weapon, and I did fire it to defend his life and my own life, and then he died in my arms. And so no, I don't regret it. The book is a transparency look at what happens in the kind of neighborhood that I'm from, and so I can tell you, I've had hundreds and hundreds of people come up to me about that book, whether they were exposed to or experienced sexual assault or rape, or they overcame poverty or domestic violence, or any of the things I talk about in the book, and they have tears in their eyes. They tell me it changed their life. So whether I win this election or anything that happens in this election, I will never regret publishing that book.
Well, and I wonder too, I mean, did writing it make you want to run for office? I mean, did sort of letting all this out allow you to feel like you wanted to do that?
I had zero belief or thoughts that I would run for office for writing the book. The book was really about, unexamined trauma. And I'm not sure if you're aware that Senator Warren and the Senate leader made a joke about my book, claiming that I claim to be a tough guy. Actually, that book explains that I'm not so tough, that you can't suppress unexamined trauma and say, well, it happened, so what, move on with it, pick yourself up. That can carry you, that attitude can carry you a long way. And I understand people that do that, but if you don't, that unexamined trauma will come back. And it came back with me. And so the book was a therapy session for me to deal with issues that I didn't deal with for 40 years. My mother was stabbed when I was 6 years old in front of me. I never dealt with it. I didn't deal with the rapes that I went through for 2 years because I said, what can I do to change with it? And I focused on overcoming poverty, and I focused on being a good father, unlike my father. And but then when I accomplished all those goals, all of a sudden that unexamined trauma snuck up on me. And so that's why I say I could never regret that book. Whether it cost me the election or any of that, I don't know. It is the truth. I will tell you something that the voters will get with me. They'll get the guy in that book. They'll get someone who's transparent, someone who will be honest, someone who will never say something he doesn't believe in, and a person of his word. And so I think the voters are ready for someone like that.
John Deaton, candidate for U.S. Senate here in Massachusetts. Thanks so much, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Of course.
See you.
Thank you.